Well, I want to welcome everyone to today's Entrepreneur Show. My name is Heidi Richards Mooney, and I'm your guest host. I'm your host today, and I have a special guest, and I can't wait to tell you about her. Her name is Jennifer Kem. Jennifer is a brand strategist and marketing expert, and the creator of Master Brand, the first program for small business owners based on the brand ideologies of larger, impactful brands. Her 16 plus years experience creating advertising campaigns, developing innovative products and services, and guiding C-level executives to align their business strategy with their brand, both publicly traded and privately held, has produced millions of dollars in revenue for companies like Verizon, Oracle, Microsoft, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and innovative startups in Silicon Valley. Today, Jennifer and I are going to talk about her brand map and how you can use it to help your niche want to do business with you. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hey, thanks, Heidi. I so appreciate your invitation to talk to your audience, and I'm pumped to be here today.
Yay. I love when I meet people online and then I get to actually see them. And it feels like we're in the same room, even though we're, thousands of miles away from one another. And that's what makes it very cool. I just love this medium. And I think a lot of people are really hopping on the bandwagon. So hopefully it'll be around a long time. And if not, at least your interview will be.
Right. Isn't that great?
It is.
We're making history, Heidi. We're making history right now.
Every day, yes. Right? So we're going to start out with, what was the pivotal point in your life no, we're not going to start out with that. What I'd like to start out with is I'd like you to give us a little bit of background about you and how you got to where you are. And then I'd like you to tell us the pivotal point in your life that made you realize that you were born to be a business owner.
Wow. Well, there are quite a few pivotal moments in my life that told me that I was supposed to be a business owner. Most of those pivotal moments came from resistance. So my aha and my awakening to when I finally took the big leap, to become a business owner and to go off on my own and to follow my passions and my gifts, happened over the course of many aha moments, many pivotal moments, to use your words. So just to let everyone know, again, thank you, Heidi, for having me here. I am Jennifer Kem. A lot of people call me Jen Kem. In fact, when people call me Jennifer, I kind of think it's like my doctor or my teacher. So feel free to call me Jen. Everyone out there, I just want to give a shout to a couple people who I know are in my tribe that have jumped on because I shared this link with my communities. Nancy and Laura, I see you guys here, and I know a few will jump on, and I think this is a great show. So, to answer your question, Heidi, I grew up in a very small town in Hawaii. I actually still live in Hawaii now. I haven't lived here my entire 42 years on this planet. However, I grew up in a town, not more than 4,000 people. I definitely believe that somehow, some way, God, the universe, etc., said, I'm going to plant this little soul in this little town. And I literally came out of the womb overly curious. I don't know where I got all of that from. It literally was seeded in me. My mom used to say, I don't know what to do with you, but the best thing I can do with you is to educate you. And so I'm very grateful to my mother because we grew up in a very middle-class family in a plantation town. We grew sugar, back when sugar was made in the US still. And literally my front yard and my backyard was sugarcane. And so, you remember back in the days when we didn't have things like Blab, Heidi,
Before internet, you mean?
Right, like you went outside and you actually played outside and you played in the mud, and that was my life growing up. But the thing was, I was always this weirdo kid. Like, I was that kid that, I grew up in a very Asian dominant society, a lot of plantation workers, so Filipinos, Chinese, Japanese heritage. And so that mindset is I'm going to use the word obedient. And I was the absolute opposite of obedient. Talking about pivotal moments, I was the kid in class that was always raising their hand, asking why. I was the kid who questioned what was on the news. Literally, I would watch the news. I enjoyed reading the newspaper. I was weird, and so again, exactly. Yeah, I think you have to be a little crazy to be a business owner. So when you talk about pivotal moments, I didn't know what that meant or how that equated. But the one other pivotal moment growing up was in second grade. I went to this Catholic school, good Catholic girl. There were only 12 of us in the class because we lived in this small town. Everybody else went to public school. My mom figured, okay, I'll invest in your education. Then I'll know what to do with you, because she didn't know how to groom me. And so bottom line is, Sister Fatima, who was our teacher at the time, asked the proverbial question everyone gets asked between kindergarten and fourth grade, which is, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I remember standing up saying, everybody was like, I want to be a school teacher. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a nurse. I want to be a police officer. I want to be a firefighter. I was the one that stood up and said, I want to be the corporate counsel, the general counsel for Coca-Cola International. And my teacher was like, what is that? And I said, oh, it's the right. And I said, it's the top lawyer in the world, like, because Coca-Cola is the biggest brand in the world. And here I am, a second grader, and I just loved to read. I was one of those kids, and I would look at the newspaper, and my dad and I, the way we would enjoy after school is like, we'd always sit outside and we have a Coke. And so Coca-Cola became a favorite brand of mine. So this weird little kid I was like researching the brand, and oh, this is like the biggest brand in the world. And for you listening, even 35 years, Coca-Cola is still the biggest brand in the world. And so it's a long story. There's a lot of ups and downs along the way between that moment in second grade and then coming to here. The interesting thing is I didn't become a lawyer, but I did become, obsessed with being people, the brands, which I think akins to declaring that I wanted to work for the biggest brand in the world back in second grade. So, pivotal moments happen and then the third one, which is like, there are a lot, but the third one I can really think of is, I worked in the corporate world as a marketing executive for 10 years, and I loved it. I was always, again, curious. So grateful. I was very ambitious. I climbed the corporate ladder very quick. But in climbing the corporate ladder, two things happened. One is I was burned out. Number two, felt like I wasn't myself, meaning like as much as I had to contribute, I felt like I needed to dress a certain way. I needed to look a certain way. I had to play the boys' game. No offense to the men online. I love men. Men are awesome, but I didn't feel like I could stand in my power as a woman without sacrificing my own values or, time that I wanted to have to build a family as well. Because again, I grew up in a small town. I had always had a plan to be married, have kids, and be the best, have the best career possible. I always had that dream. I never expected less for myself. And so I just got burnt out, Heidi. I got burnt out, and I decided to take a risk, and everybody had told me, oh, you could do this on your own. And I opened up a chain of retail stores that did very well. In fact, I was a multimillionaire by the time I was 33. And so I had one of those first entrepreneur moments or business owner moments where it's like a success story instead of a bad story. But here's the key. I opened it in 2007. The first year we just killed it. Well, many of us know what happened in 2008 and 2009. We had a major recession in the US. A lot of people lost their money, especially those that had a lot of assets in real estate and in retail. And that's where all my assets was real estate and retail. And literally what felt like overnight, Heidi, I lost all my money. I literally went from, living in a big executive home, rolling in a beautiful car. My kids were going to private school, the same private school that President Obama went to. And that's a $40,000 per kid tuition. I mean, just to give people the understanding of the kind of lifestyle I was living. Very grateful too. Like I grew up very humble. So I never really, the way I am, Heidi, is I never think of like what's on the side of me. I just think about what's in front of me. And so because I was like that, that was something I learned that was not good for me to build and scale an enterprise, because I didn't notice what things were happening around me completely enough, or didn't take them seriously enough to protect my legacy. It's just why I built it to begin with. So instead, what happened, December 23rd, 2008, 2 days before Christmas, busybody Jen, mom, business owner, walks into the bank, and the bank tells me that basically I have an entire, like all my accounts have been closed and shut down while we're going through a legal battle with my real estate company, my retail company. And that was during Christmas. And that was, that was the biggest pivotal moment of my entire life, Heidi, because it was that moment where I had to decide whether I wanted to go back to the corporate world to figure it out, or I was going to do something different. And I stayed with business ownership. And now I'm proud to say I own a 7-figure branding agency, which is really back to the core of what I really, really love. And it couldn't have happened if I didn't learn, and lost everything to, along the way. So it's longer than I expected to say. There's actually quite more.
You think there's so many lessons in your experience, which obviously can help you a lot in growing, but also a lot of other people. And I'll just have to say a shout out. I'm a recovering Catholic too. Went to Catholic school for several years and was one of those incorrigible kids that actually had to leave or get kicked out. Because I too, they had to put me in the front row if they wanted me to learn anything, because I would talk too much and I was always distracted. I had ADD, and I think I still have it, but that's another story. And I did want to do a shout out for Hawaii, because I've been there 3 times. It's absolutely my favorite place in the United States, other than California and Florida, which I've lived both. And I love New York too. But I mean, as far as a place to just feel totally free, it's really beautiful. And my husband wants to go there so bad because he has not been there, and we've talked about it. He loves surfing. So another story for another time. Cool. But you know what I hear is something that is a common thread among women that I talk to often, and that's that the corporate climate and where they came from, and then starting their business, and then that background seems to really help a lot of people become huge successes, because they have the background of the discipline and seeing great role models in business, and yet they can actually leave and be true to themselves, as you said, because they can run their own business their way with still using those valuable lessons. And I think that that's some of the things that we might want to talk about. So for instance, I know we have other questions, but what are some of the lessons that you think you learned in corporate America that helped you become a better business owner?
Oh my gosh, Heidi, I'm so glad you're opening up this conversation, because I think it's so critical. I work with a lot of women now, which I didn't expect to work with so many small business aspiring women, but that seems to be who is mainly attracted to me. So I call your day job your investor. So, if you're still working corporate, first of all, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say is that business ownership is not for everyone. And I think that it's important for successful corporate people, okay, or people who are just tired of the grind of corporate, to look at why are they unhappy. I have to say that up front, because if you think owning a business is going to make you happier, I would, if it's based on your why, and your discipline has to be so strong, is so much stronger, because you don't have the container that the corporate world gives you that has more structure. So for people like us, Heidi, I love that you said, like, I'm naturally ADD, not clinically, apparently, like telling my doctor, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? No, but, just naturally curious, again, is how I like to describe it. That I think, though, if I hadn't had the corporate experience that I got, I would have never, ever been I don't know what never, ever. It would have taken a longer time for me to, I think, become the success that I have, in my second rodeo, I call it, because the first rodeo was the retail, and then now it's the services business. But 3 things that corporate taught me that I'm so grateful for. One is systems. So, and my definition of systems are people, process, and technology, right? And PPT, I call it. And if you work in the corporate world first, you learn to be systemized. And when you go into business ownership, you need to have that same type of what I call, again, discipline, focus, et cetera. And systems help with that. See, and you almost, like, when you work in the corporate world and you've never been a business owner, you're a little spoiled and you don't even know it. Like, you might complain on the day-to-day of what your corporate job is, especially I work with a lot of people who are IT professionals, information technology professionals, who want to start something, outside of that. I'm like, you're so lucky that you have this project management background. You're so lucky that you understand how to build requirements. You're so lucky that you you can think like that, so that when you deliver what what you need to people who have to help you build it, that you can be clearer, because I find that they're just more, they have the system. Whereas a business owner who just came out, I find they struggle the most with that. They resist it too. It's like, I don't want any structure. That's why I became a business owner. Well, if you really want to build it, you have to have some structure. So therefore, you have to find other people, process, or technology to help you become more structured so you can live in your gift, I call it. Like if you want to really be in your creative most of the time, then you have to honor and respect that yin and yang that comes with business ownership is required to grow. Okay, so systems is the first thing. The second thing is, I will say this: I've had my share of both crappy leaders and and when I actually, they're not even leaders, because I've had crappy managers, people who you go, those people where you're like, how did they get promoted? Like, how did they even get the job? How did somebody believe that they could be in charge of people? But the majority of my corporate career, I had great mentors. To your point earlier, I was lucky, and I took full advantage of my mentorship. Like, everything that they did well, I studied, and then I tried to replicate and execute the same kind of way, which frankly gave me some favor for my boss. Because if you have a good boss and you have a good leader, they're not intimidated by what you do. They're happy that you're helping their job make their job easier, make them look good. And you take that same element. If you have that, you take that same element into small business, because now you have to be the leader of all of it. You're the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, you're the janitor, and you're the CEO. You're cleaning up the poop, and you're commanding the armed forces. So, I learned very early that, when you have a mentor, and a good leader, then you need the whole thing is clone your coach, or clone your consultant, or clone your leader, because that out of the corporate world is so key. And then the third thing that I learned from corporate is teamwork. And you can't execute everything on your own. You need people, and it's not just about the teamwork, but it's the understanding of what I call enrollment. Okay, I don't believe that we're just working with people. I believe that we're enrolling everyone into the bigger vision. So it's your job as a business owner to have the vision and then enroll other people into the vision, both every stakeholder in the business, your team, your clients, your investors, your family even, right? When you're doing your own business, like, you got to enroll them. You got to get them clear on why you're doing this crazy thing. So to me, what I learned in corporate was enrollment. And so systems, leadership, and enrollment.
And you're so right about enrolling people in your vision, because without that, that's probably a very important part. You won't have the satisfaction that you're looking for as a business owner, because you need their support. I'm very lucky. Everybody in my life has always been very supportive, and I have been a business owner almost all of my life. I think in college I worked at a Jack in the Box, and I worked at a department store, and I also worked at a fish and chips place and a car wash. But those were my 4 jobs that I ever worked for someone else. And then after that, I have always had my own business. And it's so weird, because so many of the things that you're saying, and many of the women that I've talked to have, they may call it something different, but it all boils down to the 3 things that you said. So I think that that's good. And that you were able to recognize what you did get out of it and use it. Because I've talked to women who were just so miserable, they decided they were going to do things totally different, and they didn't have the same success, or it took them longer because they fought it so long.
Oh my gosh, Heidi, I love that you just said that.
Too.
I truly believe one of the things that makes successful, quote unquote, successful people different from people who are really struggling to find that next level of success is exactly what you just said. You don't have to abandon everything that you've had, everything you've learned up to this point, both emotional, technical, personal, and professional, add up to what you need to do to turn yourself into a business. And so I always, like, when people come to me and say, well, yeah, I hated my manager, I never want to be like my manager. Good. You shouldn't be. So what exactly would you do? What would you do that would be the opposite or different than what they would do? But can you also see the gift in some of the things that they possibly taught you. Like, what things were there? There could have been structure. Maybe they were a micromanager, but they taught you some valuable tools that you can implement and put into your business or teach other people about in a better kind of way, right? Like, abandoning everything from the past is not going to necessarily give you what you need. In fact, you've learned valuable lessons along the way. That's the best education. Best education is
Oh,
doing.
absolutely. And sometimes, yeah, and sometimes those lessons are the things you learn not to do, which is good. So let's talk a little bit about your company, or a lot about your company. That's what we're here for. Tell us what you do for clients, and then I know that you have this thing called a brand map. So I want you to also share what a brand map is and why it's important.
I own ChemComm, which is the umbrella company. ChemComm's KEMCOMM. And it's a digital branding agency headquartered here in Honolulu, Hawaii. But the interesting thing is, Heidi, we don't even have one client in Hawaii. I run this company from Hawaii,
Wow.
and I have global clients. The majority of our clients are in two categories. We have corporate clients who we do the digital strategy for and support their in-house marketing teams on running advertising campaigns online. And so I used to actually have a couple clients here in Hawaii, but the thing is that they moved out of Hawaii and they moved back to the mainland, we call it. For those of you who don't know that term, basically anything outside of Hawaii, the continental US, is called the mainland. So I still have those clients, and they just moved out. So Verizon, for example, used to be here. Verizon Hawaii, they moved back to Dallas, brought everything back there. So I'm still working with those corporate clients, and I have a COO over that part of the company, and it's pretty operationalized. It's amazing. We've been in business now for 6 years. Then, crazy me, 4 years ago, I kept getting asked, because I've always invested in my education. I learned this from my mother. Again, I'm great. She used to make me mad about it because she really kind of controlled me in that kind of way, sent me to Catholic school and all that good stuff. But I'm so grateful because what she put in me is my lust for, learning. And so I always invest in my higher self, both professional development as well as personal development, and to be the best marketer on the planet, which is always my goal. To help as many people become better marketers, because I believe, my tagline is, I want to help you get seen, get heard, and get paid. Part of it is people do so much on the back end, meaning they build products, they build services, they build systems, which again, we talked up front, very important. But what they're not doing is they're not drawing people to them on a consistent and persistent basis. So that's where I enjoy the most. And that's what I do in my personal brand. And so myself, I'm a consultant, and I help small business owners basically take what they've built or what they want to build and become better at getting clients through marketing and creating a brand, again, that gets seen, gets heard, and gets paid. And I do that through a couple programs. One is called Master Brand. You talked about it up front. It is based on, which I will talk about, it's really the brand map in program form. Okay. So I'll talk about the brand map in a minute. And then I have another program called Momentum Pro, where one of the biggest problems that business owners have, especially in the beginning, is accountability. They need a team around them to help them get ish done. Okay. So I created Momentum Pro to teach people how to become pros at momentum, because people always go, how do you get so much done, Jen? I'm like, I'm so clear and focused on what I got to get done every day that it produces results. I'm really bending time by becoming a Momentum Pro. And so those are my two core programs as a consultant, as an individual brand, as CEO of ChemComm, that I created another revenue stream. And now I'm just enjoying so much working with small business owners, because I think that there's a lot of teaching out there, but no one has, in my opinion, that inside scoop and will tell the real deal. Because I ask my clients, some of them are on here right now. I tell it straight, because we don't have time. We have a finite amount of time on this planet in our physical form. And if we're going to use it, let's use it to our maximum potential. So that's what my programs are all about. Now, the brand map is basically the methodology that holds all of what I teach. Okay. And it's in 4 parts. So the first part is called brand archetypes. And archetypes, have you ever heard of archetypes, Heidi? Yeah. So, we use My first experience with archetypes was when I was 23 years old. My first job was at an ad agency. Guess what our first account was? Coca-Cola. And I was like, I was a junior copywriter. But what that really meant was I got coffee for people, and I would sit in the boardroom and listen to the debates as they built the storyboards for the campaigns. And it was all about the archetype of Coke versus the archetype of Pepsi. And from that moment, I became obsessed with learning how I can blend archetypal, psychological indicators within campaigns. And then what I really realized is the reason people are so frustrated is because they're not living their archetypes. So archetypes is the first part. And I have a proprietary system called the Archetype Indicator Mix that I built based on Carl Jung's methodology. And so all my students get access to that. And then they figure out their archetype blend. And then we go from there. The second piece is audience, which I call your audience is the side of the coin that pays you. So like if archetypes is one side of the coin, audience is the other side, and that's the coin that pays you. Too many people do not take enough time to understand their audience, to get a level of intimacy with their audience, to understand truly what's driving their decisions. And a lot of times we do that work on the surface, but if we took the time, and I'm going to just say boldly, if we weren't lazy and tried to guess, but really went in on what they need, you will find more success in the outcome, because people will then decide to work with you. You don't have to push or pull people to work with you when you go that deep with them. And so audience is the second piece of the brand map. Then the third piece is your aesthetics, which a lot of people think that branding is all about. Well, I have a different method of coming at that. Aesthetics are important, certainly, and that includes your visual brand, your fonts, your website, your colors, your graphics, etc., as well as your copywriting. But it's less important in my way of teaching than knowing your archetype and your audience, because your audience will tell you what they want to see. So too many times we come out and we decide what our brand should look like, but we haven't tested it out on our audience yet. And the other thing I want to say about aesthetics is don't get stuck, meaning so many people like, oh no, I'm so screwed, Jen. Like I didn't do the archetype work and the audience work yet. It's okay. These things, the key is what the fourth piece of the brand map is: activation, because activation activates the dream. So action activates the dream. And so your logo will change over time. Starbucks logo, a lot of people don't know this, but it's changed radically from when it was just at Pikes in Seattle. Many brands have changed their aesthetics. So people get stuck in aesthetics. And I go, no big deal. Once you start to learn more about what your clients need and what they want, you'll constantly be building, because if you're constantly in action, in activating the brand, putting it out there through launching it, through putting it out in front of as many people as possible, through speaking, through interviews like this, however you do it, that brings you more data to help you make better decisions on where you invest your time in building your brand. So the brand map is those four pillars. And if you go to my website, jenniferkem.com, it's a 72-page guide on those four pillars that I just described in the last minute. Rapid fire.
Excellent. So jenniferkem.com to get, and that's a something they can sign up for. So you just go
ahead. It literally will pop up on my website, or if you don't see it when it pops up, go to services, and it's free. So basically you just sign up and you'll get it immediately for download.
I'm writing that in the text, so if people are reading this later on, they'll know what we talked about a little bit. That's excellent. And you did a great job of explaining, obviously, the brand map. I think that everything you've said is absolutely important. Being a marketer myself, I think that you're so right. People do kind of push aside the audience, or they assume who their audience is based upon who they are. And it's not necessarily that we're not necessarily the same as our audience. It depends on what you're teaching and what you're selling too, I think. So it has a lot. It has a lot to do with all that. So let's talk a little bit. And I think this may kind of lend itself to what you've just been talking about already. You on your website, you talk about why clearing the air and speaking your truth, especially when it comes to communicating with your family, is essential to entrepreneurial success. Can you
Absolutely.
elaborate about
I
that?
don't believe in separation of church and state when it comes to business, if you will, because I think that I have, I used to do it where like I had a separate schedule for my family and a separate schedule for building my business. And I felt this torn energy all the time. And I have 3 kids, by the way. I haven't mentioned them, but I have a 19-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old. And so I'm a very busy person. And so, and also, of course, I have a husband as well. And, my job in life, if I'm doing anything successful, it means not only am I providing a great income to allow my family to, and have what we need, and of course what we want as well, but it's more about the time in. And so I don't believe in balance, Heidi. I think that balance is a myth. That's my stand on it. I feel like if you want to be a business owner, the truth is that hustle is required, but the struggle is not. So how do you get past the struggle with your family is, first of all, you have to be, I share, my husband might not understand everything out of my mouth because he's actually an art director, but he's definitely more creative. He's not a business guy. His whole thing is, I'm great at a job. He's great at his job. He's not interested in having a business. So what I do though is every quarter I do planning. I have a 12 to 18 month plan, but every quarter I refresh my plan depending on what the market is telling me. And so I always share it with my family and my kids. Like we do like a little like I just show them in plain language, if you will, what's going on. And here's the thing. This is where mom is at, because I do travel quite a bit. Because as I said, I mentioned that I have all my clients are on the mainland or they're global. And I travel about every 6 weeks, Heidi. And people go, oh, how do you do that? 6 weeks here, 2 weeks off to the mainland and then back. But my kids expect it. We're on a routine. Okay. And I'm not the most, guys, I just want you guys to hear this. I am not an organized person, but without organization, I'm dying. So I have systems in place now that help keep me accountable to what I say I want. So back to clearing the air, I'm just very proactive. I wasn't always like that, by the way. I don't want anybody to get the idea that I do this perfectly, nor that I haven't screwed up. My kids have been resentful here and there. But with 3 of them, what I do make sure is there are non-negotiables in my schedules, meaning I will be at their major events, right? My husband and I have a system where he covers that piece of it for what I call, nothing's minor. I would never say that to my kids out loud, but like the smaller events, but the big rocks, I'm always there, non-negotiable. I have no problem telling a client I can absolutely not do that. In fact, it's happened to me before where a client said, I need you next week. And I have something like, hello, like my son's, preschool or whatever. No, I'm not going to go. I mean, I'm just absolutely not. And I'm just very clear. So back to not believing in balance. Because if I were balanced, then I couldn't be a business owner. Like, I just don't believe in that. I do believe hustle is required. And anybody who says that, that they don't work hard in their business, I think they're lying. I mean, I'm just being straight up. Like I do think, but I enjoy it. It's not like I'm complaining. See, there's a difference where like, if it's hard, but it feels good because I know I'm making a difference, then I don't mind working hard, right? It's just like having a job. If you really like your job, you don't mind putting the hours. It's when you become resentful that you're putting the hours when you're not liking your job anymore. So I like my business. I love my family. And so I basically, we plot out the 90 days together. Basically, that's how I do it. And whatever shifts and moves, we make it happen. And then I always try to I call it time stacking. So one of the greatest compliments that I ever got from my oldest daughter, who's now a freshman in college, is that, she said, Mom, you're much better than other moms. And I said, really? Why do you say that? Because I always have that mommy guilt, like, oh gosh, do they have enough of my time? Am I making the right decisions? And she said, no, because when you are with us, for the 6 weeks on, right? You're with us. Like, I'm present. I'm listening. For those moments that we have every morning, we have breakfast together. That's a non-negotiable. Right before I jumped on here, Heidi, I had breakfast with my kids. My daughter's home for the summer. And then I said, Mommy has an interview at, 9 a.m., 9 a.m. here, which is 9:35 here in the morning. And then I have these things coming up. And then this afternoon, we're going to go on a shopping trip for 2 hours. Like, I literally have it. I call it time stacking. So like, I just make sure that I have these pockets of intense presence with my kids, with my other half. And that's how we make it work. It works for us. It's not perfect. There's resentment sometimes, but, and I feel guilty all the time, but I think that just comes with motherhood. But that's how I manage it.
It's true. I think that you're absolutely right. And I also agree with you about the balance. When people say, how do you do everything you do? It's because you have the systems in place. You have a schedule, as you call it, time stacking. And I learned the hard way as well, because my children are in their 30s. And I learned the hard way, by not spending that time with them. I always thought I was spending enough time with them, but I was just in the room oftentimes and not really present. So I think that what you're saying, and I think it's so important, is that if you're in the room, be present. And then they won't resent it when you're not in the room, because they know that, you're doing what you can to make their lives better, as well as being with them when you're there. So my grandchildren get the best of me because they have my full attention.
I'm not wishing to be grandma anytime soon, Heidi. However, I will say I totally empathize with my mother. My grandmother was my greatest woman mentor of my life. She died actually the same month that I lost my business. It was a really rough time in 2008 for me. And but I've had fantastic women role models. My mom and I never saw eye to eye, because her biggest dream for me was to work for the government. She was like, you will be solid, you will retire by the time you're 42, and I'm 42 now. So she kind of laughs, because sometimes I go, you know what, Mom, you were kind of right. I could have just retired and double dipped. But my mom is very conservative, and I'm the opposite of that. And so, we've learned but what I will say I learned from my mother, besides education, is work ethic. And it's the same thing that my kids see, is that we were brought up to, earn our keep, and so that level of work ethic has always supported me. And sometimes it's made me a little too, isolated and getting, kind of consumed with work. But my kids, they know that about me. And so, it's great. I mean, we can have really great conversations.
And that's so wonderful, and I think that one of the things we need to remember is to teach our children that, one of my guests said something about, if you see something on the floor that needs to be picked up, pick it up. Don't ask permission. Don't wait for someone else to do it. Pick it up. If it's broke, fix it. And I think that if we can teach our children those two things, they will have that work ethic. My children are amazing. They're amazing business owners, and they are both in business for themselves. And I'm just very lucky. I see my grandchildren following in those footsteps, not necessarily being in business, but the fact that they don't mind picking up litter, or, they don't walk by litter and say, oh my God, look at that, and then just keep walking. And I think, those kind of values in life are something that you have to demonstrate. You can't just say, do this. You have to show them by doing it. You don't even have to tell them. If you just do it, they see it. It's so amazing. So we could talk about parenting too. I mean, that's another wonderful subject, but it all, I think, equals a successful business. Let's talk a little bit about, we're going to run out of time. We could spend probably 2-3 hours on this conversation, but let's talk about how you help people discover what they're good at. So what are some of the steps that they need to take to find
here's
their
the thing
gifts?
that I always say is that their gift is normally, it's right in front of them. Your gift is mainly what people, there's two ways to discover your gifts from my perspective. The first is, what are people always complimenting you on and saying you're awesome at? And for you, it's just like, I'm naturally that way, so it's no big deal, right? So that's the first way.
Right.
The second way is when you speak about things and you notice that you start to tell people, when people go, wow, that's an interesting perspective, or wow, I never thought, or that's something that's going to help me, that it came out of your mouth so naturally that you can't even think that you have a methodology inside of you, or something to teach, or something that you could innovate or create to help other people's lives, make other people's lives easier. Because really, that's why we go into business, right? For the most part, is to help make our lives and the lives of others easier. So that's kind of the litmus test for me is, what do you know that will help you make your life easier and or other people's lives easier? Okay. The other thing that I tell people is that there is a plethora of ideas out there. There's no lack of a multitude of ideas. The issue is that not all ideas are worth implementing. And so one of the ways to discover what your gifts are is to constantly be, and this is going to sound so cliche, but it totally works, is to be journaling constantly. Every day I write down, and I learned this from James. Well, I was doing it before, but I love that James Altucher, I don't know if you ever, you know him or you follow him, but James Altucher is a pretty famous blogger on the subject of all kinds of business stuff. He's pretty radical. But one of the things that he tells people is to journal 10 ideas a day. And I used to do that, but I didn't do it with consistency. But now that's part of kind of my morning. I call it my morning slay. Like every morning, what am I going to slay? What dragons am I going to slay? And so I write down 10 ideas, and some are really practical and some are really radical. But it helps me organize and discover what I'm good at. And so I tell my clients to do the same, because do it for even 10 days straight and see what comes out of it. And you'll start to see patterns that you'll start to recognize, that you go, oh my gosh, that's something I could do. Some of us just know what we want to do, but a lot of people they're choosing confusion as a strategy because they don't want to own up to their gift. And my whole thing is, then make it as objective as possible. Just write it out every day for 10 days and you'll start to see a pattern, and you have no choice but to kind of, once you see a pattern and once you see you're good at something inside of you is going to drive you to want to finish it, or at least discover what it takes to do it. So those are a couple of the ways that I do it.
I agree. And you know what's funny too is sometimes, and I've seen this a lot on Facebook, I've never asked this question on in a social media setting, but I've seen people say, if you could pick one thing I'm really good at, what would it be? And you see the comments and you start seeing a common thread, because people know, like people say about me, I'm a fixer, because they hire people that do things and screw them up, and then I have to go in and fix them. But I enjoy doing that. I prefer to fix things than start from scratch most of the time, because I have this keen sense that what's wrong with something and how can it be better. And I think so, I know what my gifts are, but of course I'm old enough, I think if I don't know them by now, I never will, but there are people who are still struggling with that. So I think that that's good. When you talk about journaling, it really is. I probably fill 10 journal books a year, if not more. And I have every one of them. So I have hundreds of them all over my house and on my bedstand. And because there's always times when you get this idea and you want to write it down, or when you're just writing things that are, you might want to keep for later, and maybe you don't want to put them on the internet, or you don't want to put them in a file on your computer because you might forget where you put it, like me. So by putting them in journals, and I love when I go back and I just read a journal I wrote 10 years ago, and it was so amazing to see all the things that I wrote that I wanted to accomplish that had been done, and the things that I also wrote that I never did. And I said, oh, well, that's good, because they weren't that important, or they would never have been successful. But it's funny, you really start seeing a lot about yourself too. So I think the journaling, in fact, I'm going to have to get a guest expert on here and talk about that. So that guy, James, I've heard of him. And how do you spell his last name?
Altucher, Altucher.
Tualtucher. Okay. I'm going to look him up, because I think he's written a couple books too.
Yeah.
So pretty amazing. Wonderful. Okay. So let's talk about the one thing all successful people have and how we can get it.
Well,
or do we need it?
Well, I think that you have to have an attitude of action. That you can't let ideas sit for too long. Atrophy, it comes with when I consider business the greatest fitness workout of your life. Think about when you want to release weight or you want to be stronger. The results are on the other side of you completing that workout, right? I mean, seriously, and to me, business is a workout. And if you commit to 2 to 3 hours a day of committed time, you will start to see the results of that. But if you stop, start, stutter, if you get into a place of non-consistency, that's when you lose. That's why the word momentum is so important to me. Momentum comes from daily, focus. And again, I wish you guys, if you really knew me, I am an unfocused person. I don't like people telling me what to do. I don't like rules, but what I do like are results. And I realized a while ago that my love of results had to be larger than my resistance. If you want results, then you have to be honest with yourself. And that's what I had to be with myself, was like, I had to be honest. I can be a rebel, without a cause, but being successful means that you want to be a rebel with a cause. And so, because business owners aren't like other people, they're the most courageous people. And I'm not just saying that because I'm actually like, I just admire people that take this entrepreneurial journey, especially women, because we're already juggling a lot in our life. And I'm so grateful that, every time I've seen myself do something well, it's because I got over my own, I hope this is okay, I'm just going to say my own bullshit. Like the things that I was telling myself to justify why I wasn't getting what I wanted. Once I got out of my own way and I started taking consistent and persistent action, magical things happen. Like, people are like, ooh, like magic. There's no such thing as overnight success. That tipping point that happens when it looks like you've made it was really years of you going at it in a way that, showcases that your willingness to release the fear, release the crap that's going on between your ears. Because the greatest, if you want to be successful, the truth is that your success is right outside of this 2 areas right here. Like it's outside of here. Like the journey is from here to here. It's nowhere else. It's the inner game that causes the outer game to happen. And so, successful people manage the crap between their ears a lot better than other people. And they take action even when they don't know it's going to pay off. And so that's what I would say. And that's what's worked for me. For me, it's been about, and by the way, I tell people all the time, I'm scared every single day. And I mean this in the most, I say that without whining or martyrism. Like every day I go, oh my God, I can't believe I'm still doing this. Like, oh my God, I'm still doing this. This is great. I'm feeding. We just retired my husband last year because we had a baby. And that was scary for me. Like, okay, now it's all on me. The income's all on me. I live in the most expensive place to live in the United States of America. Oh my God, do we need to move? Every day, but the minute I just look at the truth and go, that's not real if I choose it not to be. So I'm going to go take these actions to test out what could work. And we've replaced his income and more. And I'm saying that without being braggy. It's just the truth. But I had to face my fears. I was in tears. I was nervous. I was worried. Didn't realize we're going to have a baby I was going to have a baby at age 40. You know what I mean? But I'm just proof that if you're more committed to your results than you are to your resistance, you can make this thing fly.
Excellent. Wonderful. What a great story. You're just amazing. Let's talk a little bit about your Learn to Give initiative and why someone might want to be part
that's
of it.
really the true love of my business, is to give back. And I didn't coin this name for myself, Heidi, but my clients call me generosity, with a J, Jen. And the reason is that I'm so overcommitted really to, I truly believe I've been given a lot of opportunities to make great income and great impact in the things that I do. And so in order to do that, I want to make sure that a portion of what I do goes back to other women and teenagers, especially, who, haven't been taught that this is possible. I love that you mentioned that your grandchildren are already taking the entrepreneurial path. Your two kids are, but a lot of time, I didn't have a family that taught me entrepreneurship. My entire family works for the government. I need everybody to hear that. Like, everybody works for the government in my family. I am the only one. And I needed something to help other people like me, especially women and teenagers, discover if entrepreneurship is the true path for them. So my Learn to Give initiative basically is every month I do a masterclass, and it's really a donation masterclass. So it's, we recommend $50 a month, and every single dollar goes to two nonprofits that, that and by the way, I don't use the same nonprofit every month. So last month, for example, we gave our donation to Kiva, which, if you guys know about Kiva, it's micro loans to small business owners, a lot of women, mainly women entrepreneurs globally, and then Motivating the Teen Spirit, which is Lisa Nichols. If you know who Lisa Nichols is, she was in the movie The Secret. I'm actually her brand officer. I run all of her marketing. And, her nonprofit is called Motivating the Teen Spirit, and we help kids discover, their gifts and decide entrepreneurship. So Learn to Give initiative is a way that's a very low cost way for you to invest in your education from a business perspective, but know that every dollar you put in learning is giving back. So it's a I call it a win-win-win for everyone involved. So that's what Learn to Give initiative is. And if you're interested in learning more about it, just go to my website, and it's a tab up at the top. So that's what that is.
Wonderful. So I'm sure you don't have a typical day, but let's talk about what a typical day might look like for you. Because they're really all different.
Actually, I do have a typical day, because when I say typical, I have a structure to my day that is consistent. So in the morning, I wake up at 5 and I go and work out. And I didn't always do that. Let's just put it this way. This year, one of my goals is non-negotiable superhuman health. I'm 42. I've got 3 kids. I want to last a long time. My dad passed away 4 months ago. After my grandma, he was my best friend in the world. And when he died, and he's only 67. And I realized that, I've always known that the vessel that you have, the temple that you have, is important, because you can't do this work without being, physically strong for too long anyway. But that was like my last priority all the time. And that was my wake up call. So anyway, 5 o'clock, I work out without and I'm going to tell you straight up. This morning, I did not want to get up. I literally woke up and I'm like, babe, I rolled over to my husband and I said, I don't know if maybe I should just chill for today. I'm tired. And he's like, it's up to you. And I was like, no, I got to go. So wake up at 5, because I realized, and I'm not a morning person, Heidi. I'm more of a night owl. So like the fact that I've changed my routine for that is significant in my life. People, you don't even know. Okay. So 5 to 6:30, I work out, because I have to get in my car and go over to Orange Theory, which is where I work out. And then I come home at 6:30. I eat within an hour, because apparently I'm supposed to do that with my kids. They're up by 7, right? I have breakfast from 7 to 8, and then I take 2 hours, and I call it my morning dragon time. So all the crap I don't want to do, I take care of for the first 2 hours. If I finish it before the 2 hours is up, I look at that as free time for me. I've already allocated 2 hours. So, because every day there's some crap that's got to get handled, stuff I don't like. A lot of that comes around organization and stuff like that, which I don't like. Okay. I hate taxes. I hate finances. I hate all that. Okay. So that's the stuff I handle first thing in the morning. Then what I do is I take a break with the kids. I do, lunch around that time. And then in the afternoon, I basically put 3 solid hours on, literally with a timer, Heidi, of just what I call slay work, like SLAY work. Okay. So it's what I've got to do, but I enjoy. So like the mornings, frankly, I just get it done. I don't like it, but I get it done. Afternoon, that's when I have a creative burst of energy. and I will take 3 hours for that. Then I totally take a break for 2 to 3 hours, chill. Sometimes I even take a nap because I get tired. And then I eat dinner. And then what I find is I get another creative juice flow around 8 to 10:30 my time. And then if I'm in the flow and I can do some stuff, I do it. If I don't, I just watch, I chill. I talk to my husband. I do all that stuff. So like, that's my basic every day. I have a structure every day. And it's just that within those two big blocks, which is my morning dragon time and my afternoon slay time, that those are my big blocks of work, if you will. And I just try to get all the crap I don't like doing first thing out of the way. I don't like it. I'm telling you, every day I bitch and moan about it. Every day I bitch and moan about it. But
But I bet the moment you're done,
I'm noticing
you're
that
so
because
happy.
I have 2 hours. I pay myself. This is how I pay myself. I pay myself like getting it done faster. So if I give myself 2 hours for the mornings, the morning dragons, then if I get it done in 45 minutes, I'm like, yes, so I'll go and like call a girlfriend or, do something fun, research our next family trip, whatever. Like I try to reward myself in blocks too. That also helps me, by the way. Like, it's just like working out. I go with my trainer and then she's like, if you get through this first block, the reward on the other side is you can cool down for 2 minutes. Oh, heck yeah. Like, that's how I look at things. Like, okay, I'm constantly rewarding myself and incentivizing myself to finish a block of work. So yeah.
Excellent. Great advice. You've given so much amazing advice, but I'm sure there's more. So what one bit of advice would you like to share with the audience that you have not yet talked about?
Gosh, there's so much. Well, let me tell you this. I don't want to die on I'm noticing that my laptop is dying. So I want to make sure I get my laptop charger. Hold on one second. I'm having one of my kids bring it to me. One thing that I want people to hear is don't give up, because your breakthrough is right on the other side of an action you might not have taken. I mean, again, sounds cliche, but the truth is that it's this constant, Steve Harvey says, who's also a client of mine. If you guys know who Steve Harvey is, a lot of people know who he is. Steve Harvey says, inch by inch, everything's a cinch. That's what he says. And I like to always, like, who I think of as like a model for me of not giving up, is Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth is the all-time home run hitter in baseball. And what a lot of people don't know is that he also holds the, thank you. You can just come on here. Thank you. Sorry, I have to plug in, you guys. I don't want to lose you guys because of, I'm running out of juice here. I'm literally at 10%. So I'm a little nervous when we live stream. It eats a lot of, let me just get this going here. Oh my gosh. Oh, there we go. Okay. Sorry guys, 1 second. So Babe Ruth, he is not just the home run hitter of all time. He also has the most strikeouts. He also holds the record for the most strikeouts. And he could never, so the point is that Babe Ruth, every time he got up to bat, he swung for the fences as hard as he could. He went all out. And he was willing to get strikeouts so that he could get his home runs. And I look at life the same way. Business is like that. You got to push. You got to go all out so that you can get the home run, because the home run delivers the impact and the income that you're looking for. You didn't get into this business to be broke. You didn't get into this business to struggle. You didn't get into this business to, feel alone. You didn't get into this business to feel like a failure. You got into this business because you have a dream and something that's like burning up inside of you that you want to help people, through. And in order to do that, you have to be willing to do the work that job that you possibly had before entrepreneurship gave you, that now you have to apply the same disciplines and structures to yourself. So again, take it from me, the ultimate rebellious, don't like anybody messing with my creativity kind of woman. I am total proof that if you focus on the things that matter and you eliminate the things that you don't, and that you always swing for the fences, even when you know you could strike out, that is your time. So I just want to leave that with you.
And I think that's wonderful. Thank you for that last bit of advice. I think they're all important. What books are you currently reading or
Oh
would
gosh, I have a
recommend?
top five because I'm like crazy. You should see the box from Amazon that just came in. I'm a voracious reader. My first number one book to read is Essentialism. Have you read Essentialism, Heidi? Okay, so
No, I haven't.
my number one business book for years that I used to tell everybody was The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. So he's now bumped to number two
Love that.
because Essentialism came out. So Essentialism, um, then The Tipping Point, then Tribes by Seth Godin, because building,
Love
your
that.
community is how you get seen and heard. And then there are a lot of others, but The One Thing is another great book and it's all about, honestly, success comes with focus. I really, really believe that. And when you focus on marketing activities, I think marketing activities are your first things that you should be focusing on, not focusing on building out an empire that nobody will ever visit. Okay. The whole idea of if you build it, they will come. It's a movie called Field of Dreams. You have to brand it. You have to bring people to it. You have to invite people. You have to be willing to put yourself out there. So the one thing in Essentialism, focus on how you focus on those things so that you can, get the highest return on investment in time and money that's possible. So those would be my top ones.
Great. That's it. I put them all in the side and we'll be sure to share them on social media as well. What's next for Jennifer Kim?
Right.
Jen Kim.
Well, I'm super excited that not my first. I started this, Momentum Pro is my program where I help people with accountability and focus and I created the program for myself because I knew I needed it. And I figured out a system that I just told you guys about that helps. And I needed accountability. So I created this program. Well, anyway, what I know is, guys, is that belly to belly, I call it belly to belly conversations, or, face-to-face conversations are always more powerful than even this digital world. Like these mechanisms like Blab, Periscope, Facebook, Twitter, they've all created other ways for us to communicate, but there's nothing more important than face-to-face conversations. And so what's next for me is that this year, the rest of the year and going into the next, I'm going to do a lot more live events. I have one called the Momentum Pro Business Retreat happening in Berkeley, California. June 24th to the 26th. We have 2 more seats if anybody wants to come. But we have 75 people coming. And it's going to be 3 days of pure execution. So you go to a lot of events and there's sales pitches and whatnot. That's not what I do. I do I'm going to teach you how to launch your brand. That's what Momentum Pro is about. It's how to truly launch and execute your brand, because this is what people do. I'm trying to get people to graduate from Announcers Anonymous, I call it. Too many times we're announcing what we do instead of launching a brand. And so the 3 days are pure implementation. If you're interested in it, we only have 2 tickets left. momentumpro.me/retreat. And we even have a Purple Rain party that we're having one of the nights of the retreat. It's going to be great. So if you're in that area, or that's something that you need and you want to learn from me face to face. And a lot of people, based on our testimonials from the last one we did a beta one in Austin, Texas 3 months ago, and it was off the chain. In fact, it was so off the chain, I added a day for the same price. So we have 3 days instead of 2 days, and it's just really exciting. So if that's something of interest, that's what's next for me. And I'm going to be doing more of those because I've been asked by my clients to do more live events. So that's what's happening.
Excellent.
Great.
Wow, we're out of time. I cannot believe this. We could have talked another hour, I know, at least. So, Jen, what's the best way for our audience to get in touch with you?
Again, you can go to jenniferkim.com, but the best absolute way to be really near what I do, and I do a lot of free training all the time on Periscope and on Facebook Live, is what we call the Paid to Be You Posse on Facebook. That's my community of brand builders who want to get seen, get heard, and get paid. So it's the Paid to Be You Posse, and you can actually go to paidtobeYouPosse.com. It'll link you over to the Facebook group, and you can join in and partake in all the awesome community. It's such a helpful community. Everybody helps each other. I call us we're like the strong and the mighty, because I'm all about attracting the people that want to get seen, get heard, get paid, not just a lot of spammers and people who just want to pitch their products. So very helpful community. So I think that's the best way to really experience how we play in the world. And I say that we, because I truly believe that the Paid to Be Posse is like, I just created it. The container actually lives on its own, lives and breathes on its own. So
That's wonderful. Well, you know what? When the community starts running itself, that's
right,
always good because then you
exactly.
know it's working. Jen, thank you very much for being with us. I love your cup, Boss Lady. I actually interviewed months ago Eileen Harris, and her
Oh,
company's
cool.
called Boss Lady. And then you mentioned Slay the Dragon, and a very dear friend of mine, Lisa Jimenez, who lives now in California. She's originally from Florida. She's living, I think, Venice or somewhere in Southern California. She wrote a book called
Oh,
Slay the Dragon. So there's two really great people that I'd love to connect you with. They're both just amazing women like yourself. Lisa does retreats all over the world.
wow.
Fiji's her favorite
Like
place
Tony
to
Robbins,
hold
like Tony Robbins.
weekly retreats. Yes, yes, she's huge in the retreat business, and Eileen Harris does a lot of speaking globally as well, and she works a lot with women like you and I both do. So that's really cool. So I just want to say again, first of all, thank you to all of our audience for being here and being so great. I'm sorry we didn't have time to answer any questions. I didn't really see any, but be sure and connect with Jennifer or Jen at jenniferkem.com and join her Facebook group, paidtobeposse.com. Jen, thank you again. It's been a pleasure. I'm really thrilled we got to meet each other and have this time together. I'm gonna make a point of finding a way to get that face to face.
That's great.
With
And
you.
Heidi, I so appreciate you inviting me into your amazing show. And anything I can do to support you in the future, please let me know.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You never know. I may be reaching out. Again, just want to say this is Heidi Richards Mooney. You've been watching the Entrepreneur Show. Next week, we have two really exciting guests. So be sure and check out www.theentrepreneurshow.com and you'll see all our upcoming guests. And also you can see some of the replays. Again, Heidi Richards Mooney, founder of Women in E-Commerce and president of Redhead Marketing, saying thank you for being with us today. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.